I actually need to go. All right, so first we're going to talk a little bit about pencils and why we're using the kind we are, and then we're going to get into actually using them.
I don't know why.
Okay, so pencils have different grades. It refers to the softness or hardness of the lead, which means that it's easier to blend or spread out to use for drawing. So the H pencils have a stronger core. They're better for drawing like lines. The B pencils are what you use for shading. So in your bag, you have 3 different level B pencils, and one is an HB. That one is the sketching pencil. That one's really good for drawing. Most number 2 pencils are HB. It's like a blend between the two. The ebony pencil is the softest lead, so it'll get you the darkest values. So on the very top of our paper, we're going to do a value scale, and we're going to use that ebony pencil. And then as we go down, you can try out the other ones to see how they work, okay? So how many of you know what a value scale is? All right. Jasmine, what is a value scale? Yes. You go from the lightest your pencil can color to the darkest your pencil can color. How do you get it to get dark? With what? You push harder, yes. So one thing about sketching is that you're never holding your pencil this way. This is drawing. When you're sketching or shading, you want to use the side of your pencil. It's the biggest surface area, and it's the easiest to get the lead onto the paper smoothly, okay? You could even hold your pencil like this, where it's completely, your hand's completely sideways. This is uncomfortable for me, but as long as your pencil is sideways, that's best. The other thing is you can use just like straight lines, or you can color in very small circles. When you're coloring like a big area or shading a big area, the little circles is better for coverage so that you don't have lines in your artwork. But if you're doing a small space or you're just doing something quick, you can do just the up and down, okay? So from left to right, you want it to get either the darkest to the lightest or the lightest to the dark. I don't care what direction you go, but one side should be the lightest this pencil can color, and the other side should be the darkest this pencil should color. My preference is to start with the darkest and get lighter because it is much easier to add more pencil than it is to get rid of it once it's on your paper, okay? So whichever side I want to be the darkest, a lot of times I'll go ahead and start there, and I'm just going to make my left side be the darkest. And I'm going to start adding my pencil. And this is not always something you're going to do really fast. Okay, but that's definitely not dark enough, so I'm going to go back over it again. Filling the whole space, okay? Then the next box I would color lighter, and then lighter, and then lighter. All right. By the end of this, my pencil is barely going to be touching this paper. When you're blending or shading, you don't want to see the white paper through your pencil. So if you still see paper, that generally means you need to go back and add more lead, or you need to blend it out or whatever. But you don't want to see the paper anymore. That's always your goal. Another thing you want to be careful of, especially with this ebony pencil, is dragging your hand through it. You'll have pencil lead everywhere. So a lot of people, when they're working, will have an extra paper and they'll keep their hand on paper so that their hand doesn't drag through their pencil and ruin the rest of their artwork. Okay? So they'll pick up a piece of paper and work with it as they go. If I don't do that, I almost always end up with it on my face somewhere, and no one tells you because they're mean. Yes. You could always lighten it up a little bit. All right, so for the next ones, you can use any of the pencils in your bag except the HB because we're not drawing, we're shading. And if you're worried about your clothes or your hands, you could roll your sleeves up. You could have a scrap piece of paper so that your hand isn't touching the pencil lead. We're going to jump down to these boxes in the middle. So hatching and cross hatching, which we've already talked about this year. So this should be review. What is hatching? Michael? Yeah, you draw lines in one direction. So they could be diagonal, they could be straight up and down, they could be horizontal. So we're going to make value scales in these boxes. Okay. So pick a pencil, something different than the ebony. They're not all the same. They're different values of B pencils. HB is the only one I don't want you to use. HB. You have 2B, 4B, and 6B. So I'm using 4B. And I want to create a value scale. So one box is going to be as light as I can get it, and I'm going to try to make this get darker as I go. All right. And again, I generally start with the side that is darker because it's easier to add more than to take away. So these are just lines in one direction. And remember from our pen demo, the closer you make your lines, what happens? The darker they look. So I'm just drawing lines in one direction. Yes. I'm using a 4B. You can use any of your pencils you want. And I'm going to write up here next to it that I used a 4B. And then the next box I want to make slightly lighter. So I could use less pressure on my pencil. I can make my lines further apart. That's a little too light. So for this one, you could have your pencil more like you're drawing because you are making lines. And you could go back and blend them out later. Or sometimes when you do this, you're looking to create texture, so you leave your lines the way they are.
Oh my.
What?
I put on everything.
It's fine, just draw an arrow. All right, what is cross hatching? Gabe?
Doing the lines in multiple directions.
Correct. The lines are going in opposite directions. Again, I'm going to start with the darkest box. I'm going to pick a different pencil. I'm going to do the 6B this time. I'm going to make my lines go one direction. And then they're going to go back the other way. And I can always go back and add more lines if it's not dark enough. So you can see I'm using a paper to put my hand on so I don't go through my pencil lead. This works the same way. The further you place your lines apart, the lighter they will look. You can also use less pressure on your pencil. Okay. All right. I'm going to slide up to contour hatching. I use the 2B for this one. Who remembers what cross contour lines are? Nyla?
Isn't that when like you have a shape and you kind of like draw it so you can see like, I don't know.
The form?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the lines that go across the contour so you can see that it has form. So we're kind of using cross contour lines here with contour hatching. We're thinking about those contour lines. And you're going to shade or use your lines in the same direction as a contour line. So for these ones, I'm going to make like any kind of a swirly line. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to make lines in the boxes. And when I'm shading, okay, I'm hatching, so my lines are kind of trying to follow the same direction, but I'm following the contour of that line instead of just using straight lines. This is really good to do when you're trying to shade forms because that helps to create the illusion of depth instead of having flat lines, okay? So it's just the same thing as hatching where I'm drawing lines and I'm just following that form. Okay, stippling is very time consuming, so you may not finish this one, but you'll get the idea. Has anybody done stippling before? Jasmine, what is stippling? Correct. So stippling is just making dots, and the closer they are together, the more of them there are, the darker it looks. So to make something look really dark, it would take a lot of dots. To make something look lighter, it would take less. Okay. So you're not going to get this one done, but you can start. I would start with the darkest one again. And don't be like pounding your pencil off the table, because we don't want to ruin them. But I would use your ebony because it has the most pencil lead, has the most graphite. Yes. Do you see how this would take a million years to do if you did a whole entire artwork using this? Takes a lot of patience. Huh? All right, you can stop. How far did you get? Raise your hand if you got all 4 boxes. How? You cheated. Raise your hand if you got 3, 2,
2.5.
1.
I couldn't know.
Those of you that got 4, I just don't believe that you did it right. All right, we're going down to the bottom. We're going to do scribbling, and then we're going to shade with our Q-tip. All right, so scribbling is a little bit like what I was talking about, where you're coloring in small circles, except in some cases you might leave your scribble lines for texture. And that's why I'm showing you these different techniques to help you get texture. So like stippling would be pretty good for some of those noodles. Some of them had like a grainy kind of a texture to them, especially when you zoom in. Scribbling is better for like hair and that kind of thing. So there's multiple ways to do it. You could do big scribbles, and that's going to get you more of the texture. Or if you do the really small ones, that'll get you to where you can fill up the space. So, like if I did big scribbles, it would be just like this, and I'm just going to keep going back over. But I'm not fully like filling that in because I want there to be texture. But if I'm doing the other kind, I'm really coloring very small in circles, and I'm trying to fill up all of the paper with my pencil. This is the best way to use your pencil to be able to shade a big area and get it consistent without showing lines.
Which pencil are you using?
I'm scribbling, so I'm coloring.
Like which pencil?
I'm using the ebony. You can use whichever one you want.
So let's wait.
And the more you go back over an area and the more pressure you use, the darker it will show up. So you can see I'm going back over and it's getting darker. So there's where I colored the whole thing and wanted it to look smooth. I'm going to show you here if I do it the other way. So you can see this way, you can see like there's texture and I can still see some paper. This way I was able to cover the whole entire space. Okay, so how many of you guys, when you're shading something, you'll put some pencil down and then you'll take your finger and then you just like blend it? Raise your hand. Be honest.
What?
All right, I'm going to ask that you never do that again. Because the oils from your hands will get onto your drawing and it will not blend the way you want it to.
Yeah, what you do? John.
That's a way to do it, and you can do it, and that's perfectly fine. But when you are really focusing and spending time on something, why do you want to take the chance of messing it up? You don't want you don't want to touch your artwork with the oils on your hands, okay? So you can use a Q-tip, you can use a paper towel, you could use those paper blending stumps. Any of those tools are perfectly fine and really good to use for blending. Your finger is not what you're going to use in my class, okay? So there are two ways to do it. You can put the pencil lead in the box and spread it out with the Q-tip, or like say you're trying to color something really, really lightly, you can put the pencil lead somewhere else. You can build some up. Then you can take the Q-tip and grab it. So you see how it's on there now? And then you can transfer it to whatever you're trying to shade, okay? And it will be a lot smoother and better than if you had tried to use your finger. Okay, or I'll show you here. Say I do some hatching. Then I can take my Q-tip or my blending stump and I can move that pencil around and blend. And then I can add more pencil. And then I can blend.
Oh my gosh, that's so good.
I just colored all 3 of these boxes with the lead from this one. Okay, and then the bonus is that it keeps your hands clean.
Oh.
Yes, you can wash your hands and start cleaning up.
Yesterday was rough. No, what I love.